in 1986, a group of us decided that we should find out our status. And in that group was my twin brother, Lawrence, his partner, who's white, and my partner was white. And then we had one other good friend who was black. So there were three of us who were black and two that were white. And four of us came out the door with positive test results, and one came out with negative test results. We took the information, and I guess we were stoic. We have other friends who have shared with us that when they got the information, they completely broke down. I think it helped that we went as a family, because we had that support from the very beginning of knowing that there was someone else who's going to be on this journey with us. And it was real clear in the 80s then that the Castros the gay community in San Francisco was going to be the place where we were going to stay, because we felt this would be the place where, if anything, we would get the information we need to move forward. In 1986, we had not lost anyone to AIDS. We had a few friends who were showing symptoms. We had not seen the devastation of AIDS in 1986 the way maybe some other communities had. For us, it was oh yeah, well, we have this gay disease. We did not look at HIV as a death sentence. By the time we got to that point where in the 90s, where we started having opportunistic infections, then mortality really reared its head. And we started wondering, how many more years do we have? And so it migrated from, oh, well, we have this HIV, not sure how it's going to impact our lives, to by the 90s going, who's going to die first and how much longer do we have? My brother died first, his partner died, and then my partner died the following year. We started out in 1986 with an announcement that we had HIV, and by 1996, I was the last person alive. We started thinking even then that we needed to be open about the fact that we were living with HIV. When I came out and announced my status for HIV around 1987, we found that created problems with other black people and other black gay people, because their comments were, you were promiscuous, and so that's why you became infected. And so there was a judgment going on. I decided that I did not need that judgment. So it was easier for me to monitor what I shared with my black friends. And that's black gay friends, men and women. Black family members, absolutely no conversation on that. When I was infected in 1986, I did not want to go and touch family members because, number one, they didn't know of my HIV status. I didn't know if I could infect my nieces and nephews. So I also brought my own restraints to having a conversation with my family about my own HIV. I believe today we're seeing a much better effort in black communities, especially in some progressive black churches. The stigma of HIV is being lessened. It's being accepted. The black community as a monolith has come to grips with the fact that HIV and AIDS is not just a white person's disease. When I lost my partner, Joel, I went through all of the stages of grief. I was waiting. My doctor had said, you probably have about 2 years to live. And so there was a part of me that got into a funk. By the time I was offered to try the protease inhibitors and things started turning around, I realized, I might have a few more years to be on the earth. I never saw a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I guess I had massive depression, which I didn't know. But there was one day I started feeling joyful. And each day that level of joy grew and grew and grew. What AIDS has taught me was that if you can hang on and you can find a piece of joy, honor that piece of joy, remember it the next day. There might be another piece, and I start counting. I start building up these great days. And so some people call it counting blessings. I call it counting my joys. And I do that all the time. That's who I am. When we look at the number of new infections in black communities or black young communities as compared to white young communities, I think a couple of things stick out for me. One of the key things is the socioeconomic imbalance. A young white male might be more predisposed to go and see a doctor and say, I want to be put on PrEP. A black young man of the same age might not want to go to a doctor and have that discussion, because maybe they don't have access to medical care. The other point I'll share with that, racism tends to separate. Two people walking into a place for treatment might get a totally different reaction by the staff if one's white and one's black. And as a black person, we see that. And it is one of those things where it forces a black person to be more of a stronger advocate for themselves when it comes to their health issues. Because if you have a non-black doctor or a non-black nurse, in some cases, not all, in some cases, you feel there's going to be a separate type of treatment being offered if you don't advocate for yourself. Black people have historically had a distrust. You can look at Tuskegee. You can look at other trials that have gone on where black people, they were not told of whatever type of trial they were being a part of. There's a part of me that believes that that is probably not as true as it seems to be more a press issue for me, because most black people that I know aren't afraid to get their flu shot. They aren't afraid to get an annual checkup. Now, maybe I'm talking about a generation that's older than the 20s or 30s, but I believe if you have access to care, you aren't afraid to use it. My entryway into being an AIDS activist and an AIDS advocate really stemmed from watching friends of mine become ill in the 80s. There were certain things that were available that were in the pipeline, but were not being offered because they hadn't gone through all of the testing. And so I saw the activists mount an attack on the scientific community to say, we're dying, we need access to those medications. I was sick by the time that all of that type of activism started. When my health got better in the 90s, I decided that I had a role to play. And that role was to be able to put a face with what HIV and what AIDS looks like, and not only to put a face to it, but to remind people that we all need to pay attention to what's happening to our community, and we have to constantly be getting information out.